Hi everyone, welcome back to Miri Squared by Da, where we believe music is not just a practice or performance, but instead it's an adventure that keeps unfolding.
Rhythm is the heartbeat of music. Today we're excited to welcome someone that brings this rhythm to life through the rhythm.
Please join us in welcoming Visrut Sudhakar. Visrut Anna is a gifted mridangam player who is known for his expressive playing and the passion he brings to each performance. We're so glad to have you here, and we can't wait to hear your story.
Yeah, thank you both for having me. It's nice to be here.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your gurus and how they helped you through your journey?
Yeah, so I started learning when I was 6 or 7 from Sutindra uncle here in Kerry. And then after that, I had a variety of different teachers. I learned from a few different ones from different styles. So a little bit from the lineage of Wayalparam Shivaraman sir and Karikudi Mani sir. And now I learn from R. Shankaranarayanan sir who's in Toronto now. So it's been very interesting to have these different styles at different points and having them, I hope now, blending into my own style.
Yeah. So Konakal is like a vocal gym. And what is its role that it plays in mridangam playing, and what is its importance?
Yeah, I can answer that from my perspective, probably more as a student than an expert. But I think it serves several different purposes. So the first one would be it gives us a way to practice what we're going to play on the rhythm, right? So every exercise, every phrase has a transcription that we can say as Konakol, starting from Tadi Tomnam. And those match up with our Talam system, obviously. So the first and foremost use as a student is that you can use it to practice. You can use it to keep right Kala Pramanam, practice different nades. And so from that perspective, it has inherent utility. But apart from that, it's also its own art form. So you can do Konakol as a part of your regular practice, and you can still not be at the level to perform Konakol itself. And there are definitely people who are very skilled in that. So it brings out the rhythm through a human voice. So I hope that answers the question.
And sometimes I know when they speak Konakal, it can get really fast. Are there techniques people use to kind of master that?
Yeah, I will say here, I'm not an expert in Konakol at all. But there are a few things that you maybe pick up as you go. So just like in Mridangam, when we have different phrases, you have a set vocabulary of how you can build it up, because using the wrong types of techniques to switch between notes essentially cause you to build up issues when you're playing fast, right? So going from kita is very easy, but going from something else might be harder, right? From din to di. So similar like that, you have in Konakol some tricks of how you change the way you say things. Tadi kinatom, tadi kitakum. Right? Usually when you say tadi kinatom, much faster you say tadi kitako. So it shortens like that. There are some other things where, while you're in woodwind instruments, you have circular breathing. So similar to that, you have ways of manipulating breathing so you can go faster.
That's interesting to
yeah,
know.
Yeah.
If you can, could you show us a little example?
So one example of this is near the end of a Tariyavartanam, you'll hear the set of 3 things that we play. So farans, mora, korve, you're usually familiar with that, right? So farans in particular are something that we play very fast. The point of it is basically build up speed at the end of the Tariyavartanam to go into the mora and do a big finale. So something like that is a good example of something you can practice doing Konakol, right? So basic one in Aditalam, going at different speeds. Tam, kita kita takatam, kita kita takatari kita takatam, kita kita takatam, kita kita takatari kita takatam tam, kita kita takatam tam, kita kita takatari kita takatam tam, kita kita takatam tam, kita kita takatari kita takat. So you hear kita kita takas and takatari kita takas, and these are all sorts of phrases that you need to practice to do faster in Konakol. So at a faster speed would be tam, kita kita takatam, kita kita takatari kita takatim, kita kita takatim, kita kita takatari kita takatam tam, kita kita takatam tam, kita kita takatari kita takatim. So you see, my breath is kind of different. The way that I accent things is different at the faster speed versus the slower speed, and you try to make up with that with vocal modulations a little bit. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. It's singing is for melodic instruments, while Konakal is for percussion.
Yeah, and I can give you another small example of that. So in Mridangam, we use, both sides of the Mridangam for different embellishments. So on the topi side, basically we use that to add support, like bass support, right? So when we play Sarvalaku a lot, right? So nam din din di, nam din din nam, these would be the ways that you actually play it. So the way we'd say it is, tam din din tam, tata din din tam, din din tam, tata din din tam, din din tam. So one of the things I learned in the Umayyapuram style is very much this idea of, okay, how do you modulate between, when you're saying Konakol, what's the difference between applying dom and not applying dom? So kind of pitched in that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like an interesting technique that some people use to convey that with voice.
So we know that melodic instruments such as the veena or violin use swarams and ragam to convey emotion. How do you apply emotion to percussion instruments such as the mridangam?
This is a really good question, and it's one that I can say that I'm also trying to figure out a little bit. The advice I've heard is, so first of all, when you first start, it's probably very difficult to add that emotion. You're really trying to support, it's a pakavadyam instrument. Your objective is to embellish the entire concert and make it sound good. And so at a baseline, if you're starting to accompany, sort of like starting to play for your first concerts, you really, I think, should focus on keeping the Kala Pramanam perfect and really maintaining a good balance for the vocalist or the violinist or whoever to keep the song. The emotion really comes into play later when you can modulate parts of the instrument that are more difficult as a beginner intermediate. One in particular is, for me, applying gumki and reverse gumki. Really give different notes to that bass sound that I said before, right? That's one. Another is, do you play, we have like din and chapo, right? So din and chapo are both, they both ring at the shruti that the mridangam is set to, right? And then you have deem. Deem will ring at a different shruti. So using those, what's the difference between din and chapo? What is the sound difference? So applying those half key, half num. So really understanding the instrument is one thing. Second thing is like really knowing having a vast knowledge of different songs, composers, and ragams, right? So if you know a particular composer, you know a particular song, and you know a particular ragam, at least two of those things, you should have some idea of like how the song is going to go, right? The pallavi, the anupallavi, charanam, and how you can accompany for each one, okay? So combining both of those together is really the challenge of becoming a very good mridangam player, right? And to be very clear, very much the challenge for me still. But that's what separates sort of just playing for a song and improving it. Maybe one example of that is that I like a lot is Anand and Natana Prakashan, right? There are certain parts in that song that really, I mean, the whole point of the song is that it's evoking one of the like elements, right? So the way that you accompany for that song, my sister plays it on the violin pretty often, and so when we play together, we really have that idea of like how the song is going to go. Like for Udesham cha, like from there, there's like a very interesting way that you can accompany for it, and then it comes back to the pallavi. So different songs, the more you know them, they help.
Yeah. So each talam is like a language in a specific set of beats. And when you're accompanying for a kriti, how do you bring out the specific phrases of a kriti in that cycle of beats?
Do you mean like each sangati is different, or?
I mean, yes, each sangati is different, so how are you kind of bringing the kriti to like life? Like you're not just accompanying them.
Okay, I see what you mean. So yeah, I think it's similar there as well. So the reason I asked about sangatis is each time you repeat a line of the pallavi, for example, from vocal perspective, it builds on top of each other, right? You don't go for the most complicated sangati at the beginning, right? It builds up slowly. So for example, first line of Vatapi Ganapatim is just Vatapi Ganapatim Pajeham, right? And then Vatapi. Sorry, excuse my singing. It's not very good, but you see the point. Like it builds up on top of each other. So there, the first line of Vatapi Ganapatim, you should play something like just tam din nam tum din tam din, or however you want to play it. Then takatata dimi nakatata dimi takatata din, ta, din. Especially for songs like that everyone knows, you really should like accompany like that, right? And then, you know, tirmanams are really nice because tirmanams give you a way to transition from one to another, one part of the song to another part of the song. Paying attention to the item of like where the next part of the song, those things I think really help a lot. And then you develop some kind of personal style over years of like how you want to accompany. Also, who you're accompanying makes a huge difference. I think how they want to deliver the song. So yeah, I think basically you start with this sarala, you start with that idea, but more than that, it's like each sangati is different, right? So that's kind of how you meld it a little bit.
I think it's cool to see how it also like builds up just
Yeah.
from the sangatis and kriti.
It's interesting to answer these questions because it's maybe like, I don't know if innate is the right word, but it's something I don't think about when I'm playing.
Yeah.
So trying to answer and break it down, it's just kind of cool to think about how it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accompanying is an art of its own. So what would you give? Is there any advice that you would give to anyone that's starting to accompany?
Yeah, take every single opportunity you can get. There's no such thing as, you know, a small opportunity. Treat everything with the same level of respect and level of practice going into it. Playing for bhajans and playing for Nam Sankirtanam is like very, very good practice. That gives your that adds to your skill set some like repetition, practicing a lot different speeds. At the same time, like you can practice just from YouTube videos online. There's no reason you can't. That's how I practiced a lot, is listening to old recordings and accompanying them. And what you learn from that is how the greats, you know, played and how those styles change over time. Like you see like this thing of tirmanams in the past, they used to play like one really big tirmanam for Redikala Aditalam song. They'll play huge tirmanam. Then after that, they'll play takadina din, takadina din, takadina din, and go to the next line. That's just the style before. So you'll learn that kind of thing. And then, you know, if you know other people who are starting at your level, who are maybe instrumentalists or vocalists, practicing with them really helps. It's just really, really difficult in the beginning because you're thrown into unstructured environment. Hey, I know all of this stuff I've learned for like the last 5 or 6 years, but I don't know how to apply this. Even if my teacher told me this is a tirmanam, you don't know what to do. So I think that sort of stuff would help a lot.
That's definitely one of the cool parts about accompanying because you never know what's coming on the stage no matter how much you really prepare.
Yeah.
So if we were to personify each talam that's out there, any talam goes, which talam do you think would describe your personality?
Which talam would describe my personality? That's a really interesting question. Mishra Chapo, maybe I like Mishra Chapo a lot. So it's got the, you know, Chapo talams are interesting. I always think of them in their component forms of like, you know, Mishra Chapo is a Tishram and then Chatashram, right? Khanda Chapo is like a Chatashram and then a Tishram, 2 and 3. So I like Mishra Chapo. It's very reliable. I think it's actually a very, very easy talam if once you get over the idea of it being a Chapo talam. I think a lot of people think it's very confusing at first, but it's very reliable, very easy. And it's very friendly. Like you can play anything. There's the Chatashram at the end. So if you want to play something at the end, that's fine. Everybody knows Tishram, you know, and there's so many good compositions in it. So I would pick Mishra Chapo.
So adding on to that, what's your favorite talam to accompany for?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Rupaka talam, especially Rupaka Chapo, is considered like a hard talam to accompany for well. I kind of like it. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm amazing at it, but I feel like there's a lot of scope for stuff that you can do in there, and a lot of the compositions have things that you can bring from one to another. So yeah, that and probably Mishra Chapo as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we know that high school has a lot of challenges. How did you manage to keep track of time and actually practice while you were in high school?
I didn't keep track of time, that is. I think there are people who do it much better than me in terms of balancing everything. I remember towards the end of high school, I will say it's been a little while since high school, so I hope I'm not making anything up about my life then. But I think towards the end of high school, especially like senior year and things like that, when it was quite busy, I would sort of stay up late and practice, and it would be a break between other things I was doing. I was pretty fortunate in my being at home and practicing, that no one minded that I was practicing so late. And I listened a lot, and at that time I had a lot of, we had a really good community of sort of like friends who would jam together, and so that was really good break from things. In terms of time management, I think ultimately you sort of have to pick, I would say you have to pick your battles of like what you're really interested in and what you're going to devote your time to. But at the same time, there's kind of no way getting around it. It's just tough. I remember I also did a bunch of clubs that probably weren't ultimately that useful, but you feel like you have to do it. But yeah, I think remembering your enjoyment and why you like music and treating it as an activity that is fun and enjoyable for your own sake, even if that's carving out like an hour a week of your own type of practice that you enjoy doing, is really important. Because if you get caught up in just, I need to practice, I need to do this, it starts to feel like a job rather than enjoyment. Yeah.
How did your practice schedule shift when you went to college? Where it's a bit harder to practice in the dorms?
Yeah, I think it's hard. You should probably plan ahead a little bit. There are other people who are music majors, and they practice like in the music rooms. So I used to pay for I think the practice permit in one of the music rooms and practice there. Consistency is a bit difficult. If you can manage to do it, it's probably a really good idea. I went to college near home, so it's easy to come back and practice. I think the difficult part was actually, I don't know if this is a follow-up question, but the difficult part was after you graduate from college. It becomes very hard, especially once you start a job. It becomes very, very hard. If you move, like finding whatever community is there, whatever's going on. So that I think is really hard. But you get there, yeah.
So like we see in vocal and violin, monodharmon tends to be a big hump in people's learning. It's this massive roadblock. Obviously, once you pass it, everything feels much easier. Is there something like that in mridangam playing?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things when you pass monodharmon. Probably accompaniment, I think. Especially doing like a decent job at accompaniment. I see a lot of students like struggle a lot with getting over that initial part, which in retrospect seems hard because once you learn, okay, some kalpana swara, it's like, this shouldn't be that hard to learn. I don't know why it's so hard, right? And it's very similar in this case. You know all the Savaloko vocabulary, you know that the amounts you're supposed to play, but somehow putting it together is really hard, especially on stage. And I would say the other thing is like Nadevedam, like when you play a Tanyavartanam and you go do Chatursham to Tishram transition is usually the first one that we learn. We usually learn a very simple like akademi, takajuno, takademi, takajuno, tam, takita dam, or some phrase in between that transitions from one to the other. But going from that, first of all, executing that is hard, and then the second is like going, Kandanade, Mishanade, especially Kandanade is really hard. It feels totally different, even though it's a similar concept. Once you have those, I think things become a lot easier. Yeah.
Do you think that
Humki is the other one. Yeah.
Do you think that block is more mental or more technique-wise?
So I think the Nadevedam, anything to do with that is definitely more mental in the sense of doing polyrhythms in general are very difficult. You can go on YouTube and find really complicated polyrhythms from all sorts of rhythmic traditions, not just Carnatic music, and just fundamentally keeping just the concept of you're keeping the meter the same, but then you're changing the distribution of beats inside the meter is complicated. For accompanying in general, like Savaloko type, I think it's sort of technique. I think it's practice. I think there is some mental aspect to it, but you just need to memorize, like really have your muscle memory of doing it. And then with Kumki, yeah, all technique. It's just really hard.
So we've seen that AI has replicated like famous singers' voices or like instruments. Do you think that this may have an impact on like percussionists or other instruments?
Yeah, I think it'll have an impact. I don't think it'll have a very good impact. I think you'll probably find some apps that do like, oh, if you're a vocalist, you can, put this app on and somebody will play mridangam with you, basically. I'm sure that app already exists. Maybe it's useful for vocalists to practice. I mean, I think like some of this stuff is like a toolkit in the same way that a Shruti box, okay, I don't want to sit here and say like inventing the Shruti box was like a bad thing, or inventing like they're useful tools. Ultimately, like music as a whole is just something we do out of passion and love and creativity. Like humans desire to be creative. So I'm sure there will be some cool stuff here and there, but ultimately it's just not that like, it's not that impactful, right? Because all of this stuff that we do, why is it that when you go do a concert, why do you sing without your notes? But you could just keep your iPad in front of you the whole time, as some people do it, right? But why? It's just a challenge we set for ourselves. So I think like there are some things I think that could be really nice with the tools that are becoming available, and aside from AI, I mean, we have really good restoration tools of old recordings, right? So we can go back and listen to cleaned up recordings of the greats, right? And we can kind of see how that's the case, how they sang things, how music progressed over time. I think there's like really great tools that allow us to collaborate with musicians across the world, right? So those sorts of things are really good. And then I think in terms of music education, there is a lot of potential for this, for technology to help. I think like, for our generation, like we have so many online resources to find notations, find recordings that we didn't have before. Mm-hmm. So yeah, from that perspective, I think generally there are probably going to be technology tools. Do I think the AI stuff will be that impactful? Probably not. Yeah. I could be wrong.
This is kind of an add-on question, but it's one we ask like a lot of people.
Yeah.
What is your take on fusion music? And do you think, is like mridangam kind of a part of the fusion music trend that's happening?
Oh, this is a good question. I mean, I have listened to some really good music that I think would qualify as fusion. I think I have complicated thoughts on fusion, and probably most musicians do. Good music fusion has always existed, right? I think Remembering Shakti is probably like one of the best examples out there. I don't think you can listen to Remembering Shakti and say this is not like, you can't, like it's phenomenal. There are many good forms of fusion. Like music as a whole, I feel is like very collaborative, but it has to be give and take. I'll get to your point about the mridangam in a second. But I think like good fusion, good collaboration comes from like giving yours and receiving. A lot of times I see the kind of, especially from Carnatic fusion, that I don't like is, this is Carnatic music. We're going to embed something else a little bit into this, and then kind of, take some song, some pop song, and then it's Carnaticified. It can be good, but I really think there has to be like a 50-50 give and take, or at least things like that. And when that happens, the music turns out to be really good. With mridangam, I think for sure there's a new-ish album mixtape. I think came out last year from a Toronto-based artist called Arul. That's really good. That's a really interesting take on sort of mridangam in the like fusion space. So there's definitely room for it. How you go about it? I mean, honestly, Jugalbandi is fusion, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you played for any engagements of sorts?
I play for dance pretty often.
And so how is it different from the normal like playing for a kachhi?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's pretty different. So I think like from mridangam perspective, it's a totally different shift of focus. That you are now a lot more in focus because you're very central to what the dancer is doing, and so from that perspective, the way that you play is maybe a little more highlighted. I like it. I know a lot of mridangam players like playing for dance for that reason. The second thing is that the compositions are different, obviously, right? So you have to really figure out how to play for the things that the dancer is doing on stage. So figuring out how to play for the different, the actual different elements basically of Bharatanatyam, for example, or Kuchipudi is also very different. So for example, Kuchipudi, they want everything to be very flourished and have a lot of embellishments when you're playing. So from that perspective, it's a little bit different. And I think overall, what you're trying to convey is different as a performance, right? When you have a dancer, then the dancer is conveying the story through their movements, versus with the vocal, you're often conveying the meaning just through the melody, because many people may not know the words, understand the words of the song itself, right? So from that concept, it's a little bit different.
Do you prefer playing for one over the other?
I don't know if I prefer. They're very, very different. I really like playing for dance. I think there are times where I like playing for dance, but then when I come back to play for kacheri, it's just a totally different experience. It's like playing for vocal versus instrumental for concert.
Yeah.
They're just fundamentally very different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we'll be moving on to some rapid fire questions. So the first one, have you ever tried any other instruments or any other percussion instruments such as the drums?
Yeah, weirdly no other percussion instruments. I played saxophone for a long time, and I still do occasionally, and I started playing guitar a few years ago. Neither very good, but yeah.
Do you like playing for dani, or like playing a dani, or playing accompaniments?
I think on stage, accompaniment.
I think we already asked this question, but do you have any favorite talam and ragam that you like to play?
Talam, I think I said was Mishra Chapu. For ragam, that's a really good question. I like listening, probably listening and playing maybe Kalyanis. Yeah.
What is your favorite instrument to listen to?
I think probably violin or veena.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any other favorite artists that you like to listen to?
Yeah, of course. I think I really like. This is a good question. So in terms of mridangam, I really like listening to Tirchi Shankaran sir's anything he accompanies for, as well as anything that he plays for, a lot. And I think Sangeeta Priya actually has an archive, I want to say, of many mridangam tani recordings, and some of those are Tirchi Shankaran sir's, and they're just absolutely phenomenal. So I love listening to those. In terms of other artists, pretty much I try to listen to everybody. I really like Ravana Balachandran right now is one that I'm listening to a lot.
Yeah.
But pretty much anything. Yeah.
So that ends our interview for today. Thank you so much, Visrut Anna, for taking the time to be here and sharing all these good experiences and stories.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I think that the information you gave is really impactful and very insightful and like to listen to.
So thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you in future episodes.